welcome to Green Queens.
The perfect podcast for imperfect environmentalists.
I'm Abbie, and she's Abbie Dewhurst. I mean, I'm Abbie.
I didn't even realise you said that.
I didn't even realise. I think I said, I'm Abbie and she's Abbie.
Yeah, you did. You said, I'm Abbie and she is Abbie Dewhurst. Okay, just for clarity, I am Abbie Dewhurst and she is Imogen Bogle.
Oh my God. I didn't even clock it until the second Abbie.
No.
Anyway, well, here we are.
That's a really good precedent for what the rest of this podcast is going to sound like, I think. You're all right, mate. How are you doing?
I'm good, but I think that is also why it is always recommended that you should record podcasts in the morning. And it is almost 5 o'clock here. So this is the tone that I think we can expect from the rest of the podcast.
Yes, but I mean, great way to kick things off. Always nice when I'm not the one making the mistakes. I feel like I just listened to the last episode, which has gone out, which is the Mary Manderfield, which, if you haven't listened to, by the way, is brilliant and you must go back. And we do the whole start thing and you say, the perfect podcast for imperfect environmentalists. And I'm like, is that the tagline? So I had a mini meltdown in that one. We're taking it in turns.
I think it's one of those things that you just kind of do like subconsciously, and then when you start listening to yourself, it's like, hang on, what?
Words sound strange coming out of our mouth.
But how are you? And more importantly, how was your holiday?
Oh, I am so depressed. No, I'm not. But it's that classic holiday blues situation, isn't it? And because the holiday was really, really phenomenal. And not only was it phenomenal, it was also the thing that we've kind of been benchmarking our year off. You know, it was a wedding invite that we had maybe received 18 months ago. So we've had this in the diary for so long, and it's been our like bookmark. You know, there has been a pre-Greece, post-Greece kind of plan in our heads, and now we're at the post-Greece part. We're like, oh, we actually have to do all those things that we've been putting off. So there is a touch of being back to reality, which is no bad thing. We're very fortunate to have a lovely reality anyway. However, we landed back in the UK and it hasn't really stopped raining since that point, which is quite a shock to the system when I have been wearing nothing more than a bikini, rolling around in the sunshine, eating feta cheese for a fortnight.
And you know what? When it was raining this week, I was thinking of you. What a crash landing! But I also think you were away for quite a lot of the rain, so you won on that.
Great, yeah. But no, the holiday was really lovely. It was exactly what we both needed to just switch off and read some good books. And I finally, can you believe it's taken me this long? I finally finished the book that I started when we went to Portugal.
And what was your assessment of Riders by Gilly Cooper?
Bit of a slog. The fact that it took me that long, it was a very big book with very small text, and just, I honestly wanted it to be a bit smuttier. I wanted it to be a bit more filth, and there was a lot of horse riding chat, which let me put it this way, I didn't buy the book for the actual horse riding. I bought the book for a different kind of riding. Okay.
Well, if you bought it for that reason, then you really need to get on the romantasy train and turn your hand to Fourth Wing, because that, my friend, is smutty.
Excellent. Okay, Fourth Wing, writing it down as we speak.
It's great. And I did not think that I would be inducted into the romantasy world, but here I am, about to finish the second book and soon to go on to the third.
Oh, excellent. Okay, well, can I have the first book then? Do you still have it?
You absolutely can. Yeah. But you also, I think, how did you get on with your ambition to read 6 books? Was it successful?
Well, I carried 6 books around Greece for 2 weeks. And let me look, 6 books were read. They weren't all read by me. I read 3, which is, for me, I'm not a huge reader, and I'm not a very fast reader, and I get very easily distracted. So actually that is pretty good going for me. And bear in mind, the first 5 days were pretty much just wedding, not on a lounger, like very busy out and about. So actually in 9 days-ish, I read 3 books, which was good. One of them was amazing. It was called This Is Gonna Hurt by Adam Kay, written by a junior doctor. Have you read it?
I have, yeah. And watched the series.
The series is great. The book is better. Absolutely brilliant. Would recommend to anyone. So funny, such easy reading. And what else did I read? The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Great book.
It's so good.
So good.
I listened to that on audiobook when I was training for a marathon, and that is what got me through those long runs.
Really good. So yeah, I didn't read them all. I then started another one, but Jake read the other three, so we're fine. And to be fair, the tone of the other three, I'm not really sure what I was thinking. Boy in the striped pajamas, and
Mm.
then the two follow-ups to that. And Jake has loved
Oh,
them. He said they were brilliant, but yeah, in hindsight, not really Greek holiday vibes.
no, not at all. But also you were in Santorini for the wedding, which
Yes.
Santorini, as we know, hugely touristy,
Mhm.
perhaps wouldn't be your first choice of destination, but of course you were there for a wedding. But
Yes.
you then went on to find somewhere that was like much more off the beaten track.
Very much so, yeah. So you hit the nail on the head there. And actually, I would go as far as to say Santorini was even more touristy than I was expecting it to be. It was still stunningly beautiful. There's a reason that these places are, pulling everybody from all the corners of the world to them. It's just a difficult, I think, particularly when you do what we do, it's really, you can't switch off from it. Your eyes are
Mm,
so open to everything. And so, yes, the settings were beautiful, and the sunsets were beautiful, and the bars that we were in were beautiful. But you've still got, like, you can see clearly the impacts on how much over tourism is having on the island. And even you speak, all of the people that we spoke to that were maybe taxi drivers or working in bars, like, chatting away, they all ask, where are you from? So then we ask, are you from Santorini? And none of them are from Santorini. They're all from Athens. They all come over for the seasonal work, and they all hate it. And
mm,
that, I think, was a bit of a difficult one, because you're then sort of made to feel a little bit guilty because you're part of the problem. Um,
mm,
so yeah, it was a really interesting one, Santorini. Very beautiful, but I feel like it suffered at the hands of, unfortunately, complicit people like myself, who obviously go, like you say, I was there for a wedding, but I still went. But then the other island that we went to, Folegandros, again, very aware of the fact that I had to get a boat, a huge, great ferry, which it's really sad to see in those instances just how much junk gets put into the water when you're on those sorts of ferries. But we ended up at this tiny island, which was mad because the ferry we were on was jam packed. If anybody's done those island hopping ferries, it is an absolute free for all. Like, it's every man for himself getting on and off those ferries. It's brutal. But like, the ferry was full, and I would say 5% of the ferry got off at Folegandros. It was
wow.
so quiet getting off the ferry. Um, and we arrived at this tiny island, 12 miles long. There is one road. No sun loungers are allowed on any of the beaches. It is bliss. It's what a lot of the locals, and some of the locals that we met, live there all year round. Only a very small handful, about 400 or 500, live there all year round. And I think in the summer, there's about 700 residents. Um, but they were saying that it's kind of what Santorini was like 60, 70 years ago,
Mm,
which was so wonderful. Loads of like, they have their own beehives, so all of the honey was made on the island. They have their own herd of goats, so a lot of the cheese was locally made on the island. It was really, really amazing to see how this tiny little part of Greece is so self-sufficient and was
mm,
managing to kind of sustain itself. Of course, it still heavily relies on medicines and on a lot of food that is, comes on the boats and that is imported. But I think we're going to touch on this a lot in this episode. The sense of community there was amazing. The person
mm,
whose apartment we stayed in first knew the person whose car hire we'd used to rent an ATV. They knew the second apartment that we were staying at. They offered to give us lifts places. They picked our bags up for us. It was so trusting. And I think that's something that Jake and I joked, because when we got there, we tried to rent this ATV. We were messaging this guy on WhatsApp, and he was like, yeah, I'm here now, I'll pick you up. And we were in the back of this truck, and Jake's like nudging me and going, we've been mugged off here, because we don't have a choice now but to pay this man whatever he asks us, because we're in the back of his car and he's taking us to get this thing. Like, I'm a real haggler, and I was like, no, we'll get the price down. But I was like, yeah, you're right. Like, he's absolutely got us over a barrel here. But
mm.
then, so Jake was going, let's do a deal. And he was like, yeah, he was going, fixed price. And Jake was going, oh, for God's sake, he's saying it's a fixed price. We've been absolutely stuffed here. He was going, no, we fixed price. And what he meant is, we'll sort the price out for you. Like, we can negotiate when we get to the office. And I think, again, mindset wise, we left London like, "Rah," you know, it is a free for all living this life sometimes, isn't it? It's so 100 miles an hour, and you think everybody's out to get you, because that is kind of how it feels,
Mm.
particularly in the UK at the moment. And then you arrive somewhere like that, and it takes a couple of days to realize that you are fine to swim in the sea and leave your bag on the sand. You don't have to worry about it. This guy isn't trying to mug you off. He's actually trying to be a good person and do a good deal. Like, there are lots of good people out there, and that when you find that sense of community somewhere, it's just really refreshing, and it makes you realize how wrong we've got quite a lot of stuff, I think, in the modern world.
Mm.
But anyway.
Well, I think that community aspect, as you say, is definitely something that we wanted to touch on this particular episode, because anyone who's been watching the news or been on social media in the past couple of weeks here in the UK is probably feeling really frightened by just the sheer volume of division and
Mm,
violence and fear that currently exists. And it is so worrying. And I was chatting with a friend about it. And I was like, I almost feel like I can't go on social media at the moment because I'm just like so fearful of just like how much hate I'm consuming on both sides of the political spectrum as well.
mm,
And she was like, well, you have to remember that, like, when you're, on your device, on your phone, you're getting this window into the world and like the entirety of the UK. And sometimes, and that's like, of course, that's overwhelming. Like, even if it was just positive stuff, it's an overwhelming volume for your brain. And you need to take a step back and like really open your eyes of like, what does your community look like? And what's the contribution that you're making in real life to your community? And I thought about it and I was like, well, to be honest, we had the conversation with Mary Manfield last week, or it went out last week, and she was describing the role that she did in at Oxfam. And I was like, that is something that I really do feel is missing from my life right now, is that kind of very deep-rooted connection to the community and the place that I live. And so I have open on a tab right now. I'm like, yes, I would like to volunteer in a charity shop. I feel like that is my one little thing that hopefully I can do to restore a bit of faith that I have in the place that I live and my impact on the world.
that is so nice. I think interesting that you mentioned the conversation with Mary. The episode literally went out today as we're recording this, so I listened back to it, and that was one thing again that she was like, I didn't go to uni, but I did live in all these different countries, and she literally flagged it, like, as an 18-year-old to have that epiphany. I'm kind of, that goes to show the importance of travel and of getting out, and that's exactly what I said. Jake and I really felt like we got from going to this tiny Greek island, and it is just those little like things that give you the reminder of what matters. And you said about staring at your phone and how it can be so all consuming, and you've just got access to this kind of scary bubble. Then again, having a holiday, you put your phone down, you do read a book, you do have a conversation, you do actually stare at the sky and I was going to say touch grass, there's not a lot of it in Greece, but ground yourself a little bit more. And it's amazing how quickly you realize that this is not actually reality. What is going on in here is it's a small but very, like, unfortunately very targeted amount of information, and it doesn't need to be everything.
And I think that's it. It's kind of striking that careful balance of being aware that these things are happening in the world and
Yeah,
that we do need to have an opinion on them and we do need to have that sort of self-awareness. And then also calibrating that into the value of community and the value of the contribution that you can make to whatever your sphere of influence is in like a positive and
yeah.
meaningful way. And like we've spoken about this before, because every single guest that we've had on in series 1, series 2, series 3 has said something
Mm,
along the lines of like, your local council is really powerful, like raising your voice like raising your voice to the local council is really powerful, leveraging community action is really powerful, opening up your eyes and like absorbing the culture and that's around you. Like, it always comes back to those messages, and I'm like, wow, I feel that like this job requires quite a global view and definitely like a real sort of keeping on top of the news. I'm like, actually, I need to also ensure that my attention is focused to the place that I live, the community that I can impact, and enjoy or like aim to do some good at home, if that makes
yeah,
sense.
because like you say, everybody we've spoken to, whether it be that they've been working on huge great campaigns or whether it be that they've been litter picking on a local beach, they have all started doing those local things, haven't they? And it's kind of grown and snowballed. And like, that is, I think, particularly when it comes to like the climate conversation, which at the minute you mentioned that sort of term and phrase and the language around climate change at the moment. That's an interesting topic in itself. But actually, a lot of the problems do become solved, or certainly quashed, when people do just start to integrate themselves back into their community and look at their kind of smaller circle.
Mm.
If they know their local farmer, then they will want to buy meat from them, or they might understand seasonality a little bit more, and they won't shop foods that are being imported from all around the world.
Mm.
If they enjoy spending time at their local green space or in their local beach, they're less likely to litter, or they are more likely to get involved in a litter pit. Like, all these things make so much sense when you
Mm.
have more of a community. You care about, like, it sounds so cheesy to say you care about your neighbor, but if you do, it is like as clear cut as that
Mm.
a lot of these problems do become solved. And I was at, actually, the Make a Difference Awards for the BBC last
Yes.
night,
Tell
and
me.
it's just such a feel good evening. I went and took my sister, little night off for the kids for my sister, and she sat down with a glass of wine, and the music started, and she went, "Oh, I'm going to cry, aren't I?" And it is one of those, like, totally awe-inspiring, jaw-dropping evening of incredible people that are doing incredible things in their community. And they're called a Make a Difference Awards for a difference, because the difference that these people make on a daily basis, no, they're not going into number 10 and changing laws, but they are going into a care home that might have a handful of people who are suffering from dementia, and really make their day, or make it be the
Mm.
first time that they speak in a year. Like, just really, really amazing emotional stories. And another thing that really struck me from the awards is that the people that won them are always so in shock. They do not think that they are deserving of anything. They don't think that they're doing anything particularly special or of any notoriety. They are just going about their daily life, and, like, those people, I almost feel like it's just within their blood that they are
Mm.
that way inclined. But there's a category in the Make a Difference Awards. They run all over the country, so every county has one of these award ceremonies, and every county has a green category. And one of the, in fact, the winner of last night's in Lincolnshire, they was a beach clean, a family that go out every single day in, I can't remember now if it was Skegness or Sutton-on-Sea, one of the local beaches in Lincolnshire, and do a weekly beach clean every single day. And they've
Wow.
gathered over like 8,000 bags of litter. And that is just amazing. What a small act that's having such a humongous impact. It
Yeah.
was really, and again, the thing that just kept coming up was community. The people that won the Beach Clean Award, they also knew a nominee who was sat on our table, who ran a coffee morning for people to get together and to talk. And, like, growing up in Lincolnshire, that's something that I obviously took for granted, because it was just what always happened. There was, of course I knew Bob down the road, of course I knew so and so who I delivered their paper to.
Mm.
And then as you grow up and you move away, you sort of lose that. And I think as a
Mm.
generation, we're losing that. And we need to try and get it back.
100%. I think we need to prioritize those in real life relationships. And yeah, open our eyes. And I think, God, what an amazing thing to do when you've just got back from holiday and feeling a little bit like post holiday
Definitely.
blues, to then be surrounded by such inspiring individuals. That's incredible.
Yeah, and like you say, like, you're going to go into your charity shop. I'm working with the Yorkshire Children's Charity next week. They do like this winter appeal every year, where they just essentially ask anybody and everybody, businesses, day-to-day folk, to just help donate duvets and coats
Mm.
and toys and anything and everything, because obviously as the weather turns, it makes it so much more difficult for anybody that is
Mm.
living in any form of poverty, and particularly children. Then in terms of the ratings of going to school, like, on a day when it rains, a lot of the children that the Yorkshire Children's Charity support, if it rains, the attendance at schools is like 50%, because a lot of these children don't even have a raincoat or good shoes to walk to school in, so they just don't go. So I'm spending the day with them next week, and just working in this warehouse and packing up a load of essentials, and that will hopefully be it'll be a feel-good day. I remember there was that Friends episode where Phoebe was trying to find a selfless act. Did you watch
Yeah.
that one? Can you remember it?
I don't think I have, and that is shocking to me, because I feel convinced that I've seen every Friends episode ever. So that I'm shocked that I have not seen that episode.
Oh,
But
you will have done. The Friends absolute super fans like me will know. Phoebe is trying to find an act that is fully selfless, but she can't, because every time she does something nice for charity, it makes her feel good, and then she realizes that it's not selfless because it's boosting her mood. And yeah, I feel like I'm trying to be selfless, but in doing so, I'm making myself feel good. But
but
still,
then also, like, it would be a terrible thing if doing nice things we had to do it as like some huge self-sacrifice and we felt really
Yeah,
crap about it. Like, I don't think it's a bad thing that we can feel good about doing good.
that's
That is
true.
like that's how you train a dog. Positive reinforcement.
That's true. Do I get a little treat at the end of the day then?
You absolutely do.
Great.
And the treat is that more and more people will subscribe to this podcast and continue to share it. But I again, I mean, it's you'd think that we planned this talking about community, but I had a really interesting conversation at the start of the week with this guy called Ruben Yogaraja, and he works for this company called FGS Global. I'd never heard of them, but basically they advise, like they do lots of kind of public polling, polling or polling.
I would say polling.
Oh, well, we all know so we've given 3 different versions. One of them is going to be correct. And so they really get kind of an understanding of like public perception of things like climate change in this instance, and then kind of advise companies and governments on how to use some of that information. And basically, the kind of conclusion from this conversation is that net zero is a terrible term.
Yeah. No one knows
And
what it means.
no one knows what it means. And I think it was at Wimbledon when Deborah Meaden was like, oh, say net zero, you conjure a graph. What on earth does that mean?
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, it's absolutely right. Like, it doesn't mean anything to anyone. And also, people don't want to be motivated by the perception of doing less or like things going down, which obviously net zero is like, we can all picture that graph. It's like going downwards. Same goes for things like decarbonisation. It conjures this image of
Yeah.
like
Want to
self-sacrifice and
undo. Yeah. What do I have to
yeah,
give up? Yeah.
exactly. And he was like, but all of that can be addressed if we start using positive terms like clean energy, energy security, lowering bills, actually seeing the benefits of these things play out in your local community. For example, like if there is solar power at a local football club, is it helping to reduce the bills for that local football club?
Mm-hmm.
Is that helping that money be spent elsewhere? Blah, blah, blah. And I mean, it just isn't rocket science, is it? Like,
No.
we need positive language and we need to see positive impacts play out in the place that we are. They cannot feel abstract. Otherwise, we just don't care.
Totally.
Mhm.
And like I think about it a lot in like the content that I make online. You know, don't get me wrong, particularly when it comes to the weather, it is difficult to not be a bit doom and gloom because you are reporting on, unfortunately, facts which are a little bit scary. But when it comes to other things, I find it strange that a lot of the time, the pushback of making more sustainable switches comes from people kind of saying, oh, but it means I'm going to have to spend more money. Often they're the more expensive option. And obviously, yeah, if you're installing a heat pump, that is going to cost you money. But it's looking at the longer term thing and what is the overall picture. And that's like, I am going to be working with an energy company over the next few months on trying to make videos that help people understand that a little bit.
Mm,
And like my main thing is just what I really don't want to do is focus on the negatives here because people will
mm,
always find a way to pull things apart. And one thing that I always come back to, which again I want to make a video on because it's so simple. I said to Jake at the beginning of the year, we're not buying any more cling film. Cling film was something growing up, we always had cling film in the house, and you do as you what your parents do growing up, you just think is the right thing to do. Cling film everything. Everything gets cling filmed. It's got to be airtight. It will go off in the fridge otherwise. And then like over the years I've tried the like reusable plastic sheets. I didn't get on with them very well. Some of them came off. I lost the elastic bands. I've tried like reusable washable lids. Again, they don't fit on pots and various different things like that. So we have still been buying cling film up until the beginning of this year, and I just said no more. This is absurd. We're going to either use Tupperware because we've got loads of Tupperware, or literally as simple as, I'm using a mug as an example, if we have leftovers in a bowl, a plate goes on top and we put it in the fridge like that.
very
And
wise.
Jake's like, but what? Then that plate is out of use. So what? The plate and the bowl are out of use for a day, and then you eat that food again. And I'm like, there is nothing. I don't think that gives a more clear example of how simple sometimes the more sustainable option is. We do not need
Mm,
a tiny bit of plastic that is the most single use thing I've ever used. We just don't need it when you could literally just bung a plate on top.
Mm.
It's airtight, you're gonna eat it the next day. Bish, bash, bosh, job done. And I think we need to stop overcomplicating things and stop talking about things as a loss or as a pain or as an expense. And it
Mm.
needs to just be simple. Look how simple this solution is.
Oh, and do you know what? 2 comments. A, cling film. Kind of like it reminds me of just like really horrible ham sandwiches that I used to have in my packed lunch. And just like, and also I just feel my mum like always wrapped the cling film really badly. So it was not even doing its job. And it's just like, oh. Anyway. And 2, can't believe that Jake came up with that kind of counter to, well, what about the plate?
I mean, to be fair, we don't. Well, I was gonna say we don't have many plates. We do. We have enough plates. But when I first went to do it, he was like, "But you could see him wanting to say something, but the plate is out of use, and that's quite a lot of space in the fridge." I was like, "Ah, I'll not hear it. We're doing it, and we've
And
done it ever
sorry,
since."
well, this I doff my cap, but my dad has a heat pump, and my dad also probably has a BMI of approximately 11. He is like one of the leanest individuals I know, and like eats like a bird. So he's was always perpetually cold because he's also a real Scrooge with when the heating could go on. It was on
Yeah.
for like 20 minutes a day, and with a heat pump, yes, obviously you've got to pay for installation. Boiler upgrade scheme definitely helps with that. That's a
Yeah.
£7,500 grant. But you can have the heating on all day because heat pumps operate best by just being continually on and the running costs are super duper low. So now you go to his house and you can actually take your coat off. It's
Oh,
glorious.
that does sound glorious. It really
Yeah.
does. And coming back from, like I say, from lovely, sunny, toasty Greece to a freezing cold cottage, which isn't very well, it's, I was gonna say, it's very well ventilated. It's not very airtight. It's very drafty. The temptation to, yeah, to move into something a little more sustainable would be great.
So you've mentioned obviously that you've got children's charity coming up,
Mm.
your children's charity next week. What else is on your list until I chat to you next time?
Oh, well, what is on my list? I have lots of fun kind of content projects. So, well, I worked with a cleaning company that are based in Yorkshire, and I was going to talk about it on this episode, but I felt like they would be a great sustainable business shout out. So literally just before I came on, I was like, no, don't do their job for them. And I messaged them to be like, I loved this and I loved working with you so much and I love the products. Do you want to be our sustainable business? So I've messaged them and I'm going to let them do the talking in a future episode.
Amazing.
Um, but I actually just have like a few good weeks of being at home and getting some good work done. I want to get back to the gym. I want to work with the Yorkshire Children's Charity. I want to spend some time with the dog because obviously we're away. So I've got a lot of washing to do, to be quite honest with you, mate, as well. So not a lot. What about you?
Oh, well, I feel really bad because it sounds like I've set this question up so I can be like, let me tell you about my
No,
exciting
I've
plan.
had the fun.
Oh, well, so I am going to Namibia on Saturday
Ooh.
with work, and I do feel really guilty about it because it's a long way to fly for an episode, and I'm really, really aware of that. But what this company is doing is like absolutely incredible because they've created this entirely solar powered boat, solar powered electric boat, which you can do the safari on. So there's like obviously no impact to the
That is
surrounding environment.
insane.
It's like really sensational. And it also has this electric like safari boat attached to it so that, you know, if they're like, wow, we've seen some elephants, like get in the boat and let's go see them. That is electric and it gets charged from this like huge houseboat. Um,
Wow.
so I will have much more to share about that. But the thing that I have found out before, and this is absolutely incredible, is that this particular electric propulsion that they uses an axial flux motor. And typically, like an electric boat would use a radial flux motor. It's just like a slightly different kind of motor. And the benefit of an axial flux motor is that, unlike with a radial flux or with a petrol engine, it doesn't irritate hippos because hippos and actually generally marine mammals get very, very wound up by specific frequencies of sound.
Yeah, I've heard this.
Yeah, and actually, this particular frequency doesn't piss them off at all. So it's not only obviously good that it's not, you know, creating emissions at the tailpipe or equivalent, but it also isn't making any mammals cross.
Oh, that's so good, because I
Lovely.
think you can obviously measure a lot of the time, like we've talked a lot this year because of the David Attenborough film and stuff. You can measure like the visual destruction to the oceans with cameras and whatever else. What you can't measure is the impacts that, like you say, the noise and just the vehicles being in a certain area and how much that will be kind of stressing. I think they've tried to do it in the past, haven't they, where they've measured various different like heart rates and things of animals, and they've been able to tell. But it's a difficult one to see and portray because you can't speak to a hippo and be like, is that
I
annoying
don't
you?
know.
Yeah.
But what you can see though is these videos of hippos of like attacking boats that
Yeah.
they do find annoying, and like
Yeah.
hippos are some of the most deadly animals on the planet. They can open their jaws 180 degrees. So I'm quite glad if they're not irritated,
You can just
frankly.
be floating by on something that's not pissing them off.
Yeah,
That
I
sounds
mean,
insane. How long are you there for?
so it's a very short trip. So I've got I go on Saturday, fly back, arrive on Friday morning, and then I do go to a destination wedding on a short haul flight, which I'm like really acutely aware of. But to kind of compensate for that, we were going to book a holiday away, and we're doing a staycation in Cornwall. So later in the year. So we've definitely got a bit of guilt about that, but it's, you know, they're good friends, and it's been in the diary for a long time.
And I think if Juliet Kinsman does it, then we're fine. You know, she's the
Yeah.
absolute beacon of hope when it comes to traveling sustainably. And even she was in the same boat where she was like, I'm doing a really short trip for a wedding. And, you know, there was a BBC News article the other day about the cost of hen dos, interestingly. It didn't actually mention the environmental impact and stuff. But we are just in this generation now, aren't we? Of
Mm,
this is what people do. And so it's not about, we're not the problem. Like Mary was literally saying it in the last episode, when it comes to the fashion industry, it's not our fault. It's unfortunately the way that society has kind of built up. But it's really difficult. You don't ever want these opportunities to be fully tainted by guilt. But the
mm,
last night of our holiday was actually my birthday, and like Jake had obviously, very sweet of him, planned this lovely night, and we ate at this restaurant right by the water, and it's called Sunset Taverna or something like that. And it's, you know, I've seen it on Instagram for years, and there's all the squid hanging, and everybody has the iconic photos there. And we were sat by the water, and it was just filthy. It was so
oh my gosh.
murky, and there was so much litter in the water. And like, you're paying through your ass to eat in these restaurants because they're so Instagrammable. And we were just sat there in silence, but both very aware that we were both thinking the same thing of,
Mm,
this isn't as magical as it is. It's exactly how it looks, but we didn't feel the magic because we were very aware of what we were seeing. And so I think one thing I did say to him at the night, I was like, we are already leaps and bounds ahead of a lot of other people, because there were so many people still taking those iconic photos and posing with
mm,
the squid, and people, you could see people literally angling their phones to try and not get the litter in. So I was like, we're not there. We are still complicit, but we are aware, and
yeah.
we're trying to, you know, change and raise awareness and become part of the solution as opposed to the problem. But it's really, really difficult. You sort of take on the weight of the world in those instances, don't you? Because you're like, we're the problem. I feel so guilty, but then you know, we work really hard, and we were celebrating my birthday, and it's
Mm,
just this constant battle. But particularly when it's part of your job, you mustn't feel guilty, because you do such an important job, and you do such a brilliant job at making sure that these solutions are getting worldwide, you know, accreditation, and that they're being seen by all these
mm,
incredible eyes, like investors and politicians and people that have the power to potentially implement and roll these things out
mm.
and make all those ferries in Greece electric.
Well, do you know what? That is exactly right, because actually, um, the two people that have been sort of instrumental in making this boat possible, that in Namibia that we're going to see, they actually found each other through the Everything Electric show,
Oh,
which is where I normally work.
that's
And they're like,
amazing.
ah, and so that's why they've also been very, very generous and very kind of, you know,
Yeah.
very keen that we cover it specifically. But it just proves that if these things work in certain environments, then it's totally possible elsewhere, and it's sharing that information with as many people as we can, and showing that it's cheaper, it's cleaner, it's better for the hippos.
If it's better for the hippos, it's better for us, better for the green queens.
Yeah. um, I'm just going to tell you one thing about Santorini, because this has literally just popped into my head. But for any of my school friends who are listening, you'll absolutely know the story. But Josh Chapman was someone that we went to school with.
Mm-hmm.
And Josh Chapman and I were like kind of in the same group, but like not like super, super good friends. And he just like pops up everywhere. When I lived in Leamington Spa, suddenly Josh Chapman lives in Leamington Spa. I would like see him on various holidays. He then ended up marrying a girl that I used to work with at Jaguar Land Rover. Just Josh Chapman kept appearing everywhere. And I was describing this story to Deep whilst we were sat in a restaurant in Santorini, of which there are only 5 tables of 2. I turn to my right. Who do I see?
Josh
Not
Chapman.
only Josh Chapman. I was like, how does this keep happening? Anyway, Josh Chapman, if you're listening, hello.
I feel like you need to send me a photo because I feel like I'm going to bump into him tomorrow.
I hope you do. He's a lovely man. His wife is also absolutely lovely, and I believe they have a new little baby. So I hope that they are well. And no doubt, I will bump into him in approximately 45 minutes.
On a boat in Namibia.
I honestly wouldn't be surprised.
Strange
I would
not
be surprised.
Well, have the best time. That sounds bloody incredible. And if they would like to follow it up with the Green Queens episode, absolutely by all means. I think it's been a wonderful catch up. It's been a bit of a strange episode. We've probably not quite been our usual vivacious selves, but I think that is maybe a little bit representative of the kind of strange time that the world / country is kind of in at the moment. And I think it's good that we're touching on it and that we're kind of sharing our thoughts and we're dealing with it in a way in which we feel is the only way we can. And that is part volunteering in a charity shop, part bury our head in the sand.
Well, and I think if anyone is listening and is also feeling anxious about things, like we totally are there with you. But also, if you are doing any good things in your community, we want to hear about them, like however 100%. Big or small.
Definitely. Yeah. We can have our own little Green Queens Make a Difference awards and we can maybe give out little crowns. But honestly, I mean, that is, if honestly, if I've taken anything from being in Greece and then, like I say, going to the awards and coming back to the UK and stuff, like you say, I think we're making our own little Green Queens community here. And I really do feel that and feel like, you know, you and I finding each other and stuff has been wonderful. But that is one thing that we have the ability to do, is to create and control, you know, the people around us and the community that we integrate ourselves into. And I love our Green Queens community.
I love it. We are so lucky. But shall we leave it there and see everyone next time?
Yeah, okay. I rolled a jacket potato into the oven just before this, so it might be about ready.
I've been putting off emptying the washing machine, so that's what's greeting me after this.
Same. That washing machine has been hit since Greece. It didn't see it coming.
We hope you enjoyed this episode of Green Queens. If you did and you'd like to hear more, we'd be so very grateful if you could like, subscribe and join the Green group chat for weekly episodes.